Good afternoon, everybody. A huge welcome to this launch event of the Building People prototype, and the most exciting opportunity for us to actually really talk about how can we change the culture of the industry by collaborating, by working together, by making it easier for people from diverse audiences to access the training, the podcasts, the vacancies, the mentoring that we know is out there already. So I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. Not only do we launch our prototype today, we also launch our crowdfunder, and this is the first in a series of 9 events that we are running in partnership with UK Construction Week. Just very briefly, what we want to cover today is that this isn't about us, it's about building people, this is about all of us. So please help us to make some noise. If you are active at all on social media, use the hashtags join Building People and UKCW for UK Construction Week. I've put our various usernames or handles next to the social media accounts that we use. And we're really, really keen just to make some noise, to get people involved and to really share that this is about change from the bottom up, about a movement for collaborative change. We do have, through Construction Week, the opportunity to use their ask a question, their chat function. We're really, really keen that you do. So it's not just about asking a question for the panel, but please tell us what you think. Put in some comments, put in some ideas and some thoughts, challenge us, share your thinking, ask us who's involved and who isn't and why they're not involved. We can't obviously respond now, but we will afterwards if you're happy to share your contact details. So this is an introduction to today. I am so thrilled to have just some really excellent people joining us. So I'm going to ask the panel to please, if they could just turn their cameras on, and then we can then say a hello to everybody. And I think probably the best bet, because I'm doing this through a screen share, is that we try and see everybody this way. And then when I stop sharing screen for the panel display, stop sharing screen for the Q&A, we can see people more easily. So a huge, absolute, enormous welcome to, first of all, to Bola Abisogun, who joins us from Diversity Surveyors, and he is the founder and the chairman. Another big welcome to Maria Coulter. Maria, like all of our speakers, wears many hats, but today her hat is as chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Panel at the Construction Industry Council. Another big welcome to David Frise. David is the Chief Executive of BESA, the Building Engineering Services Association, and Terry Watts. Terry is, this hat today is the Chief Executive of CSTT, the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust, but he's also my wingman with Building People, as indeed all the speakers are, because we've had support from all of them from day one, as indeed from many others. And we also have Molly. Molly is on mute and hiding her camera because she is feverishly scribbling notes away in the background. So panelists, if you're happy just to turn your cameras off, I will just do a quick introduction to Building People, and I'll just minimize the panelists. And what I just wanted to explain really was just to give a bit of context that this is where the Building People journey began. So this is 2017 when I started walking around industry and just saying, why is it that we don't have one single place that helps individuals access the training available, the vacancies, as I mentioned before, whether it's a podcast or a game or a case study or a mentor. It's all out there, but it's completely disparate and fragmented. Please don't take this slide literally. It's purely designed as what we call our spaghetti slide. And the aim of this is just to show that there is a lot going on and none of it is particularly joined up. So that's the background to Building People. What I'm going to do now is just talk you through what we have created with Building People itself, with the platform. And then we will go into what should be a really interesting conversation, understanding how this works for others, not just for Building People. So the key elements, the key parts of Building People, and I'm just going to see if I can move this slightly out of the way, is that what we brought together is what is already out there. And I will probably say this until I'm blue in the face. We are not duplicating effort. This is about collaboration. This is about bringing together what already exists. So Search Organisations is a very simple portal. And the idea is what it allows people to do is just to search for organisations that can help. So these are organisations that might provide work experience or mentoring. They might have access and support for training courses or for best practice information, for PPE, for bursaries. And there's a lot that are listed here. So organisations that we can actually show you which occupations that they support. We can show you the activities that they deliver, and we can also show you whereabouts they work, as well as, for example, if they have a particular target audience. The beauty of the search portal is you can actually filter it by show me the organisations that work with ex-military people, for example, or organisations that particularly focus on BAME individuals. So this has been a big piece of work. We say thank you to the Institution of Civil Engineers for funding this piece of work. And what this does is it helps people find what is already out there. And you'll get it, there's a theme to what is already out there. Find Information is a partnership with Designing Buildings Wiki. Now, this stems from our desire to create one place that just brings together information. And we realise that's what the wiki exists to do. So why on earth would we recreate that? And we've created various pages focused on diversity and inclusion, skills, careers, and social value, and even enabling people to upload their research. So students, share your research, help us learn from it, help us improve. And this is all available through the wiki. It's open access, so please do add your own content so we can all find information that will benefit all of us. The Ask a Person, this is an opportunity to talk to somebody that can help. And I'll leave Terry to talk more about this, as he is currently, the prototype is with CSTT. And so Ask a Person, because of safeguarding, is only accessible through the CSTT site. But what this enables is for individuals to share their knowledge and experience and their expertise with people that are asking us a question. So we're not looking at a deeper mentoring role here, but it might be I'm moving to Birmingham, I want to get into dry lining, can you give me some advice? I've got a job interview next week as a trainee QS, should I wear a tie? It is what it's going to be. It's about how we can ask people for help. So that module actually sits outside of our platform, but we have learning and events. And again, this is quite simple. This is why on earth, well, you can look through any place you want and Google to find everything. But if you're just looking, as we are indeed with this prototype, for information that's specific to surveying, then this information is sitting on our platform. So we've just pulled together examples of courses, and some are wider than surveying but relevant to the whole of the industry, and some are again relevant to the whole of the industry, and some are specific to surveyors. But the idea here is you can find what you're looking for. If it's a course or a training or an event that's focused on a particular audience, so it might be, for example, on one of the groups that I've mentioned, you can search that way, and you can also look for the particular activity that you're after. So we're asking everybody, please upload your activities, help us to make it easier for people to find what already exists. And you can then, by clicking find out more, go through and actually then go through to the website. So we're not seeking to hold everything in building people. This is again about directing people to what already exists. And then just the last two, if I show you, are the work opportunities. And then we have the resources. The work opportunities is similar to learning and events. And again, it's listings of jobs. So if you're looking for, whether it might be, for example, a placement, or maybe you're looking for an apprenticeship or work experience. And currently, as before, the prototype just shows how we do this within surveying, within its broader sense. Then we just listed opportunities here. And we've also included virtual opportunities. So virtual work experience or virtual work placements. And these are opportunities that are live, that are available, and that we want people to find. So find out more and go directly to this opportunity. And then the last element of building people that we have through the what we call our 6 buttons approach is resources. And what we've done within resources is we've just brought together content that's relevant again to the world of surveying. So it's organisational initiatives that can provide support. Maybe it's just a podcast or something on YouTube. Again, it's the initiatives that are out there focusing on the profession or broadly on other professions that can provide support and guidance. And we also have here just some examples of some job descriptions, just to enable people to understand what is available within this resources section. Now, just to finish off building people before I hand over to Terry, I just wanted to explain what we've also created. Again, we are aggregating, is we're providing links to the organisations that have done the hard work, that have created these networks. So Black professionals in construction have a supply chain portal focused on BAME owned businesses. Great, let's promote them. Let's send people their way. And the same with Stopcocks. Stopcocks actually presenting on Thursday this register of tradeswomen. This actually goes to the crowdfunder site, but I believe that the register is going live, I think, later this week. And this register, again, just makes it easier to find tradeswomen. So why wouldn't we help these organisations? And then the very final part of building people, which is really important to emphasise, is we've created what we call a network of networks. So these are the communities that have this reach into diverse audiences. And we've linked these communities into, we've put these communities into 6 specific themes based on the organisations that we found. We're hoping to create a community of organisations that work with disabled people. That's the next one planned. And this just brings together, for example, the organisations that have that specific reach, in this case, into BAME individuals. So those are our communities. I think what it's really important to mention is that building people is about aggregation. It's about integration. And the bit that makes me really happy is, again, it's not about us, but this is about the organisations also seeking to enable change across the built environment. So our model, all of this, these 6 buttons, and this is the bit that really makes us unique. This is designed to be replicated. This is designed to be white labelled. So any one of the organisations that you might find here, or indeed any organisation in industry, can choose to integrate their website with our platform, which means an individual can go to their website and work with them, but that website has more value added to it. It's more efficient because immediately it can provide an e-mentoring service. It can provide a listing of what's going on. It can provide access to jobs and to resources through that website, all underpinned, powered by building people. What we've created here, and I'll just show you very briefly, on the CIC Roadmap for Change site. So this is a really powerful site, and what they're seeking to do is quite simply to make the industry more inclusive, more attractive. And why create something new when we can work together? And if you go indeed onto this site, you will see this little icon, powered by building people. And then what you'll see is content that's been pulled through from building people. So the Roadmap for Change has chosen to pull through our content, which links to our resources section. And it might choose to, or others indeed might choose to, use any one of our 6 buttons to pull through more content. Who else can help? What other information is out there? Where can I find work experience? So this is all building people. I cannot fail to say that we have been doing this now since 2017. We wouldn't be anywhere without our founding partners. So that's the Worshipful Company of Chartered Surveyors, CSTT, and University College of Estate Management. We also wouldn't be anywhere without all the people who have helped make us what we are. To keep going, call me naive, I'm a firm believer that a little from a lot will enable us to continue as a not-for-profit and as a lean aggregating, I can't help it, a lean machine. So we are crowdfunding. The crowdfunder started today, and we will share the link with you later on. It was on the previous slide. So I am now going to say, Terry, we will quickly run one poll because we really want people to engage. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and
keep your screen on. I need to show the CSTT website.
I can, but everybody will see all the back workings of the poll.
Okay, go on then, do the poll first.
I'm fine with that. So This is the poll we're going to ask. So Actually, I've just realised a fundamental error. Nobody can answer this poll because we are integrating with UK Construction Week. So what I'd like to ask is, please, can you use the chat function on Construction Week and just tell us, what do you think the appetite in industry is to make it a better place? So do you think actually there's a huge appetite? We're fine. It's really, really in the, in the right time and place to change, or is it pretty good? You might think it's okay, maybe it's not great. Actually, it might be just simply pretty poor. But we would really be appreciative if you could use the chat function just to share your thoughts. And equally, if you can please just add comments, add suggestions, tell us what you're thinking, because we want this to be a powerful conversation that we can end up with tangible outputs that we can use to work with building people to make this industry better. So please do add details, and I will flip to the other screen to look at that, whilst Terry gets the pleasure of taking over the vocal cords. So Terry, I will turn my camera off, but I will keep my screen on. And if you'd like to turn your camera on, and then people will be able to see you and talk to CSTT.
Good stuff. Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, well, it's been a joy working with Rebecca for the last 18 months or so to try and get this off. And I think we've actually got a product now. We keep on calling it a prototype, but we have got the ingredients now to help lots of other organisations amplify their impact on the built environment and make sure that they reach their communities. So we're not trying to control those communities. People still have the relationship with their own communities, their own constituencies, whether it's whatever diverse or whatever sector of the built environment they're in. But you can use the facilities of building people to actually develop things you couldn't afford to do yourself. So from CSTT perspective, you can see here, this is our website. It's currently under development still. We were hoping to get it finished for today, but actually it'll be tomorrow. So I'm able to take you through everything. If you could scroll down, Rebecca, a little bit there, you'll see the 6 buttons from Building People, which we've incorporated into the CSTT model now. So they're very similar look and feel. There's a mentor. We are using the mentoring scheme that Rebecca showed you. And the idea of that is very simple. The idea is young people, because we're working with schools, they can ask questions of people who volunteer to be sounding boards or answer some of those questions for them. And in the COVID experience, where people aren't able to visit schools so easily, this is our way of making sure industry people can get involved with schools. And so we're using that for our schools program. If we click on the resources button, you'll see the resources are very similar to the ones that you've seen on the CIC website and also Building People, because we have a whole library of resources on Building People. We've opted to share the ones that are appropriate to our audience, our constituents here. And the schools competition, which is the thing that we're doing, which is unique to CSTT, a GCSE geography linked competition that's free for people to use, but I'm not here to sell that today. And a few other bits and pieces that we would like to actually promote for our users. If you scroll down a little bit more, Rebecca, you'll see at the bottom below that there are some other functions which are purely the Building People search organisations, the link to the wiki through find information, the events and the work opportunities. So we've taken the bits from Building People that we need. We've been able to deliver a much more full offer to the surveying community through CSTT, and particularly the young people through the schools program that we're working with. And we couldn't have afforded to do that on our own, but using the components from Building People, we made it much more effective, much more efficient. And that's what we're all about. If we can provide those modules to other people as well, and they can build websites they'd always love to have, but can't afford to do the development of, and improve their impact and reach to their communities as much as they want. And the communities are a key thing. I mix up my terms really. So CSTT has got its own community of young people and surveyors, but we've grouped, as Rebecca said, the people who want to work with us on improving the diversity and the accessibility of the built environment. We've grouped those into communities as well. And there are 6 of them. They've met 3 times each now. And it's open to anybody who wants to join. If you're running an organization or if you're involved in trying to get young people or LGBTQ people or ex-military people or whatever into the built environment, we would like you to meet with like-minded individuals there. And you can start to actually amplify your activities. And one of the best examples, I think there's a real example, is we work now from CSTT. We're trying to get to young people into schools and give them a service that just gently introduces the idea of the built environment. Construction Youth Trust, who operate mostly in London, they have some really good materials which help put the context of the built environment into maths and history. So we're offering those modules through our CSTT nationwide offer. We couldn't have done that. We wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that by using stuff that they've already done and they were freely willing to share, we can actually add value to our audience and the schools and young people we work with now, because we're all about getting more young people into the sector. And we're finding as well that if Building People produces something and we deliver the modules that we want to deliver, then we can actually be a supply chain to some of the other partners in the community, the young people's community, who are offering qualifications for those who are interested. So that's the kind of thing we can do. We've got an integration in terms of technology. We've got an integration in terms of like-minded communities. And that's where we're trying to move on to now. But I think a lot of people have heard this sort of story before. Rebecca and I can wax lyrical about the advantage of trying to create a groundswell of activity and a movement to improve the built environment. But I'd like our panelists now, if they were to put their cameras on, because we've got a very illustrious group of people here from the industry who are going to tackle the simple question really is, how do we change the culture of the built environment? Simple thing there. World peace is next number 2 on the agenda, and then solving poverty worldwide is another one we're going to fix. But if we can just focus on the built environment for today, and can you make sure your microphones are on as well, please? Then the first question, and I think I might start with David, if that's okay, David, is the. I put you on the hotspot there. What do you think are the barriers to change within the built environment?
Inertia. We've always done it this way. And it's the only way we know how to do it. And change culture, you need to develop different thinking, and different thinking is difficult to do because most of the stuff you do in automatic. There are plenty of reasons why people should change, and quite often they won't change until the cost of not changing is greater than the cost of making the change. Was the question, how do we do it, or why should we?
What are the barriers, really?
What are the barriers? Well, I think that's it. I think it's easier to do what you've always done than it is to actually get your head up and look around and think about something that's outside of your comfort zone.
Good stuff. And Maria, just before we were all told to lock down, you launched Roadmap for Change, which was perfect timing to do that sort of thing. But what have you found in terms of the barriers to change in your research?
I think there's a couple of things. I mean, barriers to change. Some of it is that people don't feel like they need to change because they're all talking to each other. So if you've got people at high level in the industry that are, you know, they're employing people like them and they haven't got any sort of diversity on their panels and things like that, but well, we're fine. We don't need to do anything, you know. And I just think there's that kind of, it's not impacting on me. Yeah. So the barrier is, I think it is about then sort of, you know, creating the business case or talking to them about the business case and talking to them about the financial sort of implications of if they don't and also if they do. And I think with the roadmap, one of the things I think about barrier to change as well is lack of information. So again, you know, it comes back to the aggregation, which is what Building People's all about, of pulling together what's there. If you do any research, like when we were looking for content to put on the roadmap, if you do research into things like leadership, you're pulling up reports from like 2003. And I think the reason why that is because a lot of big organizations and other companies are doing great work, but they're not telling each other about it because they think it's my, you know, my USP and things like that. So they're not sharing what they're doing. So if you want to find anything on Google, you've got to have search engine optimization and you've got to have keywords. If you don't put that in your content, then people aren't going to find it. So I think some of it as well is that lack of visibility of what people are doing and what's achievable.
The lack of visibility of what good looks like and not sharing enough to show that that there are actually people in the industry who are doing good things. Bola, what's your experience of seeing that? Oh, Rebecca, your microphone's off if you want to talk to us.
I was trying to interrupt really, really discreetly just to say to everybody listening and watching, please do add your questions into the chat. So this is a really good opportunity to put your questions in. We will then feed them back to the panel, but also put in your comments and your thoughts. And if you're thinking of, oh, are you engaging this organisation and have you got this bit of content, please put it into the chat. Back on.
That was a quick word from our sponsor. Over to you, Bola.
No, well, look, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Rebecca and Terry. So to your point, or question rather, around barriers to change, I've got to contextualize this because actually I'm really here representing the bank community, right? So my response to that question, what are the barriers to change, will be specific to the bank community. And pretty much it's lack of empathy and lack of emotional intelligence. And I'm saying that at leadership level. You know, one of the biggest things or challenges we have at the moment regarding culture is just a lack of knowledge. You know, what does that really mean? You know, why should we be bothered about it? And you can apply that sentiment to every other thing that the sector could be doing really well, although they're struggling with in many ways. But you know, it really boils down to you know, we're a people sector, right? You know, people do business with people. You know, building people by definition. It's about capacity building people. And I'm now targeting really the cultural change that needs to happen at senior level. And at that level, there's almost an unintended consequence around privilege. Perhaps thinking that they don't need to be empathetic or emotionally intelligent to run a business. They're running a business, but they can run it even better if their people are happy and feel engaged. And one of the real challenges around culture and the barriers to change is just a lack of appreciation for difference. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that this whole conversation can begin to infuse what that really looks like at a grassroots level. Does that make sense?
That's interesting, because that kind of goes against what Maria was saying, and that Maria was saying, and I agree with both of you actually, so they all do fit on the same ends of the spectrum, it's about the business case, but actually you're saying it's about the people feeling part of the leadership and the engagement and belonging, if you like, of the communities below the leadership to try and make the changes.
Absolutely. I'm saying that from a lived experience. You know, perspective is granular in detail, but it's a fact and it's growing. But the good thing is, building people exist, and you're going to resolve that social ill for the sector.
No problem. And next week, Maria, yes?
Yeah, no, I was just going to jump in and say what I meant by the business case was people are using the business case as a way to kind of persuade people that they should be looking at this. They should be looking at this anyway. But I mean, I deliver fairness, inclusion and respect training for the supply chain sustainability school, and one of the things that I teach is the business case for fairness, inclusion and respect, and we talk about the need at leadership level and that it's got to come from the top down. But until you start talking about money, quite often people aren't really engaging with this agenda. You've got to like hit them where it hurts.
Absolutely.
David, are you seeing that in your part of the sector as well?
Well, I was just going to make a comment that I read quite a lot of stuff by Seth Godin, who's quite interesting, who made, I thought, an interesting comment on this. And he said, imagine there are two goldfish swimming around, and one goldfish comes to the other and says, thank God they changed the water. And the other one says, there's water? And that's a bit like we are. Because I'm white and privileged and male and pale and stale, I'm not aware of the stuff because it never impacts me. And therefore, and also, it's not just in this area. People don't read. They don't look at stuff. They don't make the connections, join the dots, as Rebecca would say. And therefore, they're not just, shall we say, ignorant in this area. They're ignorant in how's legislation going to change the environment they're in. Mm-hmm. Are there new technologies coming on? They're ignorant across the board because they're too busy doing the day-to-day day job. And that leaves no headroom to think about stuff that would actually massively improve your business.
And do you think this, all of you really, whoever wants to comment, is because one of the things I coming from outside of the sector into the built environment probably about 10-ish years ago now, I was struck by the fact that in most sectors you have large companies who are expected to lead. And my career started at IBM, and it was expected. They even told me when I started, a third of you will leave after 2 years, a third of you will leave after 10, and a third of you will stay here for life. And that's basically what they expected. So they were actually, in those halcyon days of monopolistic IBM systems, they were, I'm very old, they were training up people for the industry as well as for their own future. And when I came to the built environment sector, I realized that actually there aren't any big companies, because at the time IBM employed 300,000 people. And even in the UK, it was nearly 50,000. The biggest companies in the UK from the built environment are probably the Balfour Beatties and Macy's. And I think their payroll is only around 10, 15,000 people in a workforce of 3.2 million. So do you think the leadership that you talked about, Bola, and the ignorance, David, and the business case as well, Maria, they need to be not just at the board of the big organizations, but also of the leadership of the smaller organizations?
I think if I could start, look, to me, that conversation will only make sense if clients push that agenda. You know, if you leave it to the market, which is what has happened, the market will do whatever it can and not do whatever it can get away with. And the fact is, it needs to embrace the fact that actually the business case not only makes sense financially, but morally as well. And then, you know, we start talking about health and well-being. Unhappy staff are unproductive. Unproductive staff are expensive. Margins go through the floor with that equation. So the business case sells itself. This is really about willingness to change and willingness to embrace difference. It's a binary option. You either do or you don't. I'm saying where we are today, we need to think about doing it better with the social and moral compass. And if clients drive that agenda, I think you're going to get different results.
I think that whole social value argument is just so incredibly powerful nowadays. Within Building People, what we work on the basis that we are trying to, seeking to improve diversity across the built environment, and minimize skills shortages and maximize social value. And I'll be honest, right now is not a great time to be crowdfunding. Businesses are making redundancies and professional bodies are losing memberships. It's not the best of time, but it isn't going to change in terms of diversity and the culture within the industry. That is not going to change unless something happens. And what does appear to be growing is this driver from government around procurement. So you need to procure locally. We want you to have apprentices, and we want X of your workforce to be representative of X audience. So and I love the clap there, Bola. And that's where the cynic within me, when I think, gosh, are people really able to support this? Is quite small. Actually, they're going to have to. So whether it's HS2 driving it through the supply chain, whether it's procurement and government, the social values, that's what's going to make a difference. But equally, I guess, my question, whose responsibility is it to make that change? Does this sit at the Construction Leadership Council, CITB? Is it down to the individual? Is it all of us? Right.
Well, there is work happening with regards to procurement. They're looking at bringing in different, like a more balanced scorecard, basically looking at different elements, including social value, but including things like sustainability as well. We've got sustainability targets that we need to hit, diversity and inclusion as well. And I think the work that I do with Supply Chain School, I'm certainly seeing, because I work a lot with the smaller businesses, that's who I deliver the training to, and the demand is coming from the fact that they're being asked if they want to get on the framework, or if they're working with a specific contractor, they're being asked to give evidence of what they're doing around diversity and inclusion, and what initiatives have they putting in place, what are their metrics, how are they measuring it. So there is that happening more and more. I think that the challenge that we've got is maybe like in the domestic market, because they haven't necessarily got anybody driving, like the clients seem to still be caught up in the race to the bottom on cost, so they're not really bothered about what they're doing on that level. But change is definitely coming from a client perspective.
Yeah, there's the procuring for value work that the BRE and Innovation Hub are leading on. Yeah, that's absolutely right. David, have you got any particular?
Yeah, I think the first thing is actually the first thing is to employ people. You need to employ people, and that may sound pretty crass, but actually in a lot of cases we try every route other than direct employment. And when you do that, then you stunt opportunity, because there's how do you develop people who you don't employ? How do you invest in people who you don't employ? So first off, you've got to offer employment. That would be the first one. And then the bit around the enlightenment, the bit that Maria's talking about there, talking to those people who've already engaged, who understand because something has happened that says, oh, you're not going to get a job unless you do something. A frequent question, if I use this like BIM, for example, digital construction, a frequent response is, but my clients are not asking for it. Mm-hmm. And I go, that's because you've got a huge sign over your office, which is subliminal, saying we don't do BIM. So why would we bother to come to you? And it will be the same over these bits, that emotional intelligence bits, that showing that you have a, you're a caring, thinking, diverse workforce. You've got a big sign over your door saying, we don't do that because my client's not asking for it.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like we're agreeing that there's a cultural, obviously there's a culture change needed to be done, but the way to do that is through the leadership of the businesses, from the larger ones through to the smaller ones. And the key thing is then, what will make those people change? Because naively, I thought, in fact, we had this discussion, Rebecca and I, the lockdown was announced, we knew COVID was coming, and we thought it was clear things were closing down. And what do we do? Do we just close down and go away for a bit and come back when things are working again? But we decided actually to push on through, because we thought, I thought certainly, that a new status quo would emerge once we emerged from lockdown. And we haven't quite emerged in the way I anticipated. It's much more piecemeal and slower, and some things never closed anyway. So, but what is it you think that will actually make that change? I think you may have answered it a little bit, but what do you think will be the trigger to make that change, particularly in the domestic sector where you mentioned, Maria?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think that is about it's about talking to people and having conversations, and trying to get people to see a different perspective about education, about how people are feeling. Bola was saying about the empathy. People need to hear stories. They need to understand the impact that their sort of pack mentality can have on people and is having on people. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, with SMEs and micro businesses to educate them and get them to understand, what needs to happen, I guess.
That might be a perfect opportunity to plug one of our events on Friday, in that we are creating a directory of businesses that provide services to the built environment. So whether it's that micro business providing marketing support, or maybe an SME providing QS services, how do you find them? Particularly, how do you find those that are minority owned, or those that maybe are a social enterprise or are local to you? So just a quick plug from the sponsor. On Friday morning is when we're running that event, I think 10 o'clock, I believe. Terry, can I ask a question? I really like this idea of, what would you do? What's the one change you would make if you were the boss of the built environment?
That was my next question.
Oh, sorry. And I just really like it. And I just suddenly thought I might just do a natural segue into it.
Who wants to answer that one first?
Well, could I just go back a step onto your last question, which I didn't think you guys with the second question about change and what it would take. And I'd like to contextualize it again around legislation and what legislation can do, both from a HR perspective and from a procurement perspective. But there's an example that's spinning around in my mind about, what is the impact on business leaders with regards to legislative change? And, the most obvious one is, for example, CDM compliance. To David's point, what is the opportunity cost or actual cost for not complying with CDM, for example? And it's the threat of going to jail. It's the threat of doing something wrong. It's the threat of killing someone potentially. So legislation has a role to play in this. I talk often about quotas of excellence as a best endeavor, nice to have, but actually, to the domestic market question about, how do we convince and change our hearts and minds, you've got to introduce incentives, a bit like the green grant scenario, with the net zero aspiration. You've got to incentivize people to change, but the stick and the carrot has a place, but for real systemic structural change, you're going to need legislation to some degree, I believe. David,
do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think I was going to put it as opportunities and threats in this. Some people will not get it. They will not get it at all. And as Dame Judith Hackett says, they're waiting to get their collars felt. And that's always the case. There will always be people who will be in that position and will do nothing about it until they, there are some examples of people having their collars felt. I think the big culture change is coming in the industry. It has to come because of that Hackett review, because of Grenfell. There's a moral and an ethical reason why we need to change the industry for the better. And I think that you will end up with a more diverse workforce as a byproduct to this, rather than try to specifically set out to do that on its own, because I think it's not unrelated to having a better construction or built environment industry. And by that, I mean an industry that delivers compliant buildings that do what they say they're going to do. They're delivered on time, on budget, and you get a reputation for being innovative. You're using digital offsite. You're doing it. It's an exciting industry to be in, and then we start to get the benefit and the praise for being, almost half the solution to the climate crisis if we sort this out. 90% of people spend 90% of their time in a building.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine the social benefit that will derive from buildings that actually work, that actually do things. So I'm talking about physical and mental health of society. In the days when $1 billion was a lot of money, the NHS spends 1.3 billion a year on the poor health outcomes of housing. That's a scandal.
Mm.
And we need to rectify that. And if we do, the prize is massive. And then, we talk about the image, improving the image of the industry. Improve the industry, the image will look after itself. And then you will start to attract people who are from a more diverse background, because they see it as an exciting prospect. Don't try to wedge people into something that looks, oh, I don't like the look of that. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg. Sort the industry out, and the other bits will come. But obviously you need to do the encouragement bits at the same time. But fundamentally, that's the challenge facing us. Do we want to rectify this? Do we want to change the culture? Or do we want to carry on as we are and be a bit half-assed about things?
That's right. And that's always the problem with legislation, that people will find a way of ticking the right boxes.
Well, that's where we're really innovative, isn't it? We'll find a way around it. We're really innovative at that.
Yeah, it does.
We discuss the definition of innovation in construction is I got over it. It's not that you've done something, really innovative.
Yeah, I have to say I have been struck since getting more involved in the sector, how I've seen people in construction settings. They're really innovative problem solvers like I've never seen anywhere else before. But when it comes to business and structural change, there's very few leaders actually, and they're probably, a lot of them will be speaking at Construction Week this week. But there's no one holding. There's no industry figure who we all believe or is leading the way or setting the agenda. And I wonder, if you were that person, what would you focus on? This is Rebecca's question, really. What would your one first change? What would it be? Let's start with you, Marie. You've been quiet for a while.
Oh, right. Okay. I would start with the business skills. You've got 1 million SMEs, well, between 1 and 50 people. You've got 1 million in our industry, and a lot of them are struggling. So they're struggling for headspace to actually focus on a lot of the issues that we talk about. They're just like trying to keep going. We've got ridiculously low profit margins. They're struggling with cash flow. They are struggling to find the right people. They're risk averse, so they are employing subcontractors rather than actually employing people. They're struggling to get the right subcontractors to work with. They've got lots and lots of things that are going on their minds on a daily basis, and they need help and support. So I would be trying to help them from a practical point of view to free up more headspace to actually focus on other things to help themselves and to help the industry as well.
Yeah. Okay. Bola.
I think I'm going to follow on from my earlier point around empathy and emotional intelligence. So I would mandate courses that are aligned to health and well-being, empathy. I'm not a fan of unconscious bias training. I just think that just really has no value, but I'd almost commit every individual, not just leader, to spending a certain percentage of their working week just developing their soft skills, in tangible terms, working with young people, going into prisons, giving back to their local community on a weekly basis. And it will be mandated, because that piece is really missing. And that's why in many ways the industry is so exclusive and not very approachable, not very attractive. But we really need to spend, I mean, look, moving forward, I think the whole EI piece, emotional intelligence, is going to grow. And I think with the whole virtual piece of communication, it may become part of the procurement process. So people are going to try and read the individual through a screen, which is much more difficult. But if you come across as friendly, approachable, and whatever, to do that well, you've got to work on your social skills, on your soft skills. And that is missing, you know, we're hard-nosed in construction, not me, but we're hard-nosed generally in construction. But I'm saying one thing we don't do, we don't know how to share the love. We don't know how to be nice. We don't know how to be kind. We're all about profit, 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 time, money, time, money. But actually that grinds people down. So I would mandate on a weekly basis that everyone develops or spends time developing their soft skills. And you will see an immediate game change within, I think, 3 to 6 months.
What about you, David?
I couldn't disagree with either of that. I think one point I'd make is we're a highly fragmented industry. And there are lots and lots of SMEs and micro businesses whose main focus is survival. Can I get to Friday? And they have a tough time of it, just finding work, finding people to do it, getting paid. And that's a monotonous, consistent routine that never stops. And it's that different thinking that's required. And that's really, really difficult to do, because you get through all the pile of work you've got to do. And then you go, do you know, I haven't seen my family this week. I need to get home and see them, because just tackling this different bit of thinking is just, I haven't got the headspace for that. Your question about what would you do? I'd hold someone responsible for delivering whatever building you put in for planning. So whoever the building owner is, I'd hold you or them responsible for delivering that building that they put in for planning, and that it meets all the targets that's been set. And I'm talking there about energy, climate, is it safe? All of the things that we would ask, because a building's probably going to be stood there for 200, 300, 400 years. And they shouldn't be allowed to just wander off after a year, having sold it to somebody else, and let us as society pick up the tab. So they could delegate bits of that, but not responsibility. Because if you do that and everybody gets used to the fact, actually, I'm going to have to deliver the thing that I said I would deliver when I put it in for planning, not a facsimile of the thing, not a thing that looks like the planning application, but a building that actually is the thing I put in for planning, then that will drive behaviors all the way down the supply chain and will mean that people have to invest in training and skills, including soft skills. And they will have to plan. And they will have to plan. And just during the COVID crisis, loads of people have been saying, actually, do you know what, we're more productive. You know, it's really odd, because we've got half the people on site, yet we're more productive. Well, hey, it's because you're having to do planning. Whereas before, you haven't got time to plan because we're hurry, hurry, scurry, scurry, scurry. Government talks about shovel-ready projects. That means get started on site. It doesn't matter that we haven't designed it. Get started and get going. So I would very much, and then you're into build and design, not design and build. So I very much make someone responsible for delivering that building, and also say, how long are you going to take? Because for every week you take over that time, unless you discover a Roman grave or something under it, we're going to penalize you. Because another thing we never take into account is the fact we disrupt people's lives. I had some construction done in the building next door to me, a sports centre, and I describe it as having construction done to me, because it was really unpleasant. And we don't take into account disruption, which again impacts our image, the only image we have, and we're always in the face of our clients and the public is a negative one, because things don't happen. They don't see all the good work that's done. So make someone responsible, make sure you meet your deadlines, and then the image will sort itself out, and then you will draw in people who really want to be in construction.
Rebecca, I'm sure you'll add something to that.
Oh, I'm allowed to say something. Thank you, Terry. First of all, you've all got my votes. That's quite an easy one. I just picked up, I forget, apologies, I forget who said it, but I think you probably all did, that there's just so much that everybody is trying to do in terms of running their business and getting enough money in, the profit margins, etc. And so I think if we had legislation, I mean, I'd be really interested to know if you think if we're going to, that's going to come. But if there is, whether it's from the client or it's legislative, it's mandated that, you know, thou shalt be more diverse, inclusive. It's the how do we do it? Right? You know, where are the people we should be recruiting? How do we find them? And I think it might be just quite a good opportunity just to just give Bola the floor quickly, because some Diversity Surveyors has got this amazing reach into an audience, which is, I mean, Bola, the statistics are just horrific, the number of BAME people working on site. And what we've got planned through Building People is that we can provide diversity surveyors with this underpinning technology that means all of that reach Bola has, they can access, these are where the opportunities are, this is where the resources are, this is where somebody is that can help you. And we as I say, back to crowdfunding, and Bola actually is running an event tomorrow. And I think it just might be worth, and I'm really good at the sponsor side of things, but I think it might just be worth Bola just talking through, you know, how could you help change the culture of the industry through diversity surveyors? What could that look like? And then you can end with a plug for the crowdfunding to make that happen, if you'd like.
Wow, no pressure, Rebecca. Well, look, first of all, I've got to say that what we do at Diversity Surveyors is, you know, basically the idea is that we are a safe space for the Black and BAME talent pool, who ordinarily have had no voice and very little really aspiration in their careers. So what we've tried to do is work very closely with the RICS around giving BAME surveyors a platform, to coexist, and also to network amongst themselves and create those opportunities. What we haven't done really well is source those opportunities that many of our members are fit and ready for. So the piece around retention of BAME individuals, because it is ridiculously low, I'd like to introduce something along the lines of quotas of excellence. And I mean quotas of excellence because a lot of our members are top of their game, but getting nowhere fast. And I think that actually, if, you know, to your point around one of the windows of the new offer on the Building People website, the sourcing of opportunities, career opportunities, is high on our agenda. So many are stuck where they are. A lot have lost their roles recently post-lockdown, again, which is a consequence that everybody's feeling, but I think it's kind of exponentially happening to BAME employees. And therefore, we want to work with the platform that Building People have now established to just aggregate the opportunity, because actually what we do well is attract people by definition of their ethnicity, but the common ask is the same. How can we do better in our careers? Where are the opportunities? How can we grow? How can we network? And how can we reach out to clients that are also asking for BAME staff? So the conversation tomorrow is really around how can we do that well? And I've invited a number of our members to have that conversation. But really, along the lines of your point, Rebecca, about the crowdfund, we are looking to do something amazing with our website, but plugging it into the ecosystem that you have created, and that I think is going to do amazing things in the very near future. So I hope that gives a taste of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, but really and truly it's about our members and the fact that our members are desirous of career opportunity. And in many cases, for many reasons, much of which we've spoken about this morning, they're not forthcoming, largely around the cultural change piece that isn't really happening. So, you know, for me, it just makes perfect sense to align ourselves to yourselves, the CST team, Building People, and make amazing things happen, as we always do.
Okay, well, one of the, I just a reflection of my own, if you'll forgive me then, is I'm sitting here quite smugly because I wrote one of the things I've done in my background is I've gone into businesses and reorganized their mission and objectives to try and align everybody to the same common agenda. And I did for that for the built environment sector last year and wrote it into a manifesto, which we can send you if anyone is interested. But and what's come out of today's discussion, I think, is that the underlying culture of the industry led by the management of the industry is the thing that we need to tackle. And we have a whole range of issues, from tackling their business skills, the actual management, leadership skills, the legal framework within which they operate, the social value, the procurement and the professional softer skills that they have. So there's a whole range of things we need to do there. And what I'd really like to see is different people, there's a map of what we need to see change, and then different parts of the organisation best placed to make those changes happen. So back to, I think it was Bola's point, and Maria as well, about people having a better management, emotional intelligence you talked about, Bola. I think the professions had an opportunity when Grenfell happened to actually take ownership of raising the quality of the professional standards that were in the industry, and I was as part of the CIOB at the time, and we didn't collectively take that opportunity, I don't think, which is a shame. But we could do more now. We can put CPD in place, make it part of the criteria of membership, and drive those developments much more with the professional communities. So things like that. And one of the things I think we tend to do as a sector now, I've noticed, is because people are always, when they're on site or when they're in design workshops, they're always fixing problems. So the first thing you do when you fix a problem is define your boundaries and work out what parameters you can work within. And it seems to me that when we try and address change in the built environment, we define our boundaries and see what parameters we have to work in, which means we don't reach anywhere. And so the thing that I think we need to overcome is we have got leading institutions like the CLC and CITB with their investment in skills in the sector, and other people who have the opportunity to lead. But because they haven't got the ability to reach everybody, they define what they can reach and they ignore everything else. What I hope that Building People is trying to do, and I'll give you an example, maybe not fair to pick on CITB, they're going through a terrible time, but if you go and find out what women in construction activities there are going on at the moment through in the industry, you'll find CITB pretty quickly. You'll find, I think it's 14 projects they invested in 6 months ago when I looked anyway, to help women encourage female occupations within the industry. And as far as the world is concerned, that is all that goes on. If you go to the Building People website and go to the search organisations database, are we over 90 now, Rebecca? I can't.
Just under.
Just under 90 organisations in the UK have been set up by passionate individuals with the ability to network lots of women and people who want to encourage women in the community to actually make that happen. And what I think we really need to do to make the sector operate better is to both have the top-down investment and infrastructure from somebody. Maybe it's the Building People spin-off or the communities. I don't know. I'd like to see someone own the vision for the sector, some group own the vision for the sector. And then also, but get the groundswell, because one of the things I learned at the CIOB is I met lots of those SME construction company managing directors, operations managers, delivery commercial directors and things. They're really brilliant people. They passionately believe in what they do. It's not a question of going to work and being there as a drudgery. A lot of them absolutely get a tremendous sense of achievement from their jobs. But they don't have the time, as we've said, to raise their heads above the parapet and look at the bigger picture of what sort of industry am I building, what legacy am I leaving behind, how am I hitting the cost and the time, but also the quality standards that were expected me at the beginning of the project. We really need to tackle those issues, I think. So I think that's kind of brought us round to a nice solution there. I'm sure we've got the actions nicely delineated there. We just need to get someone to give us the opportunity to do all that stuff. But hopefully during the next few days with Building People, we'll be covering different angles of the culture change, and we'll go into much more depth around young people, ex-offenders, women, LGBTQ, ex-military and BAME audiences. And hopefully people listening, anyone else wanting final comments they'd like to make before I wrap up, Rebecca? Or do you want to wrap up?
Not got anything that's coming through the chat to raise, but I would encourage people, what I'd quickly like to do is just share the screen with our contact details.
I thought you might do.
If people would like to get in touch. I've only put myself and Terry, but we can happily pass on emails if you wish to contact Bola or Maria or David. So I will just quickly share the screen so that you can all see those.
While you're doing that, I think it's really up to you people listening now and watching the recording on catch up or whatever you want to call it when you watch a video on catch up these days. But we really need to do both things, and we Building People are a turning point now. We've got a platform which helps those interested in making the sector a better place to be and driving the case for those diverse communities and changing the culture of the industry. We're in a place to do that now. What we need is to have demonstration of that by people contributing their time through the communities, signing up to be mentors, and there'll be something coming out for CSTT to do that sometime soon, and other programs where you can, whatever is your particular interest, you can support that. And of course, give some money to the crowdfunding activity. We only need a few pounds from everybody in the sector and we'll be well away to do whatever we need to do. But if you're leading a body, and some of the professional bodies and some of the industry organisations are already committed to help us do this, but you don't have to provide thousands of pounds. We're taking as little as £10 of the contribution to the crowdfunding to help make the industry a better place and to make it somewhere you'd want your children to work, and to understand the massive opportunities there are if only we can get the culture and get the diversity right. I think that's all. So I think it's time to say thank you very much to our speakers. And thank you for your time for listening. Do get in touch if you can, and we'll hopefully hear from you soon.